In her veto message, she not only mentioned the ridiculous cost of adding conductors to trains that don't have them currently, she spoke about how this is commonplace in systems across the world. Well, systems across the world are not New York City. That they don't have the idiosyncrasies of the New York City subway system. But that was an indicator to me that they're going to come for the conductor and the two-person train crew again.
So it is no secret for those of you who have viewed my channel over the past couple of years that I am not a fan of Governor Kathy Hochul, the governor of my state, the state of New York. And this is due in large part to the fact that this woman is absolutely terrible in every regard. But what you just witnessed right there, in order to start this video, was a clip from the head of the Transit Workers Union going after Governor Kathy Hochul because last year she decided to veto a bill that would have codified by law this 2 different employees per train in the state of New York, again, across every single line. And of course, these employees are the conductor and the train operator, and Hochul ended up repealing this bill, or vetoing this bill, excuse me, due to the fact that she thought this was wasteful and inefficient. And I need you guys to understand something. Despite the fact that I absolutely despise Governor Kathy Hochul, she's 100% right on this issue. The transit workers are trying to scam the taxpayers in the state of New York, and it's disgusting and reprehensible that eventually this will be overridden, and we will have 2 employees, one of them being completely unnecessary, for each and every single train. And it's absolutely embarrassing to see the Transit Workers Union guy go across television demanding this codified by law, when within the union contract itself, they actually have it codified there. He just wants to take it one step further. So this is what we're going to talk about. This is what we're going to discuss. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
When they come for the conductor, there's going to be a bloody fight back. It's going on in the middle of Kathy Hochul's election campaign. She should recognize that truth and what the consequences of coming after the TW during her election will be.
So as you can see, there's a lot of anger and a lot of vitriol from the representative of the Transit Workers Union in the state of New York, which, by the way, represents about 40,000 employees in this particular state. But the words did not just stop at those statements right there. In fact, on St. Paddy's Day, they released a strongly worded statement against Governor Hochul due to the fact that they want to preserve 2 different sets of jobs that honestly do not need to be preserved and are in fact a burden on the taxpayer. Transport Workers Union Local 100, which represents 40,000 subway and bus workers, tried to dump cold water on the governor's campaign in a scathing TV ad that ran on St. Patrick's Day. Hochul is responsible for the MTA and Local 100's contract with the transit agency that expires in May. The union is pushing to preserve 2-person subway crews and token booth agent jobs, which the transit agency has tried to make obsolete. Quote, and this is from the ad, "Centuries ago, St. Patrick drove Ireland snakes into the sea." The ad says, "Now St. Patrick is needed to help rid New York of our snake governor, Kathy Hochul, a Democrat who pretends to support workers and working families, but is venomously anti-trade union." The jab comes after MTA and Long Island Railroad workers, represented by the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen, are embroiled in a bitter years-long contract dispute. A presidential emergency board brought to mediate the negotiations sided with the union this week, which clears the way for a potential LIRR strike if there isn't an agreement in 60 days. Unlike subway and bus workers, the LIRR crews are not bound by New York State's Taylor Law, which prohibits most public sector workers from striking.
Centuries ago, St. Patrick drove Ireland's snakes into the sea. Now, St. Patrick is needed to help rid New York of our snake of a governor, Kathy Hochul, a Democrat who pretends to support workers and working families, but is venomously anti-trade union, scabbing the New York City nurses strike by inviting in unlicensed replacements, greenlighting the MTA's dangerous efforts to take conductors off subway trains, with snakes like Democrat Kathy Hochul, who needs Republicans.
So the MTA, for those of you who are unaware, is actually a statewide agency that not only manages the subway and bus system in the city of New York, but it also manages the Long Island Railroad, which obviously goes out to Long Island, and a bunch of other mass transit options statewide, and thus some of the rules and whatnot are different for the statewide agencies versus the citywide agencies. And a perfect example of that is that LIRR, the Long Island Railroad employees, are able to strike, while of course city employees at the regular regular subway system are not able to do so. But Governor Kathy Hochul, like I said in the open, is in fact correct on this issue, because the fact is what they're trying to do is mandate by law these two-person crews in order to actually just boost the number of jobs, which, considering a huge portion, almost the majority of the MTA's budget goes to employee stuff, which is why we can almost never get anything built, is obviously a drain on the system. And of course, they're trying to preserve these positions at the expense of the taxpayer, and they're willing to do anything and everything in order to do so. And again, I will point out that already under their contract, they required these two-person crews bare minimum in order to operate the trains. The dispute that they're getting in right now is that they wanted it codified by law, so not even a change in their contract could actually alter these particular job positions. And by the way, this guy actually ended up going on Fox News in order to make his pitch on one of their morning shows. And what you realize when you actually hear him try to explain why this is necessary in terms of economic terms is that the guy has absolutely nothing to argue.
What's the economic argument that one could make to support your position of why the workers are needed, separate from safety? Safety is we'll just accept that as an absolute. What's the economic debate that you would have with the governor if she was sitting in front of you?
Well, first of all, I think the main economic debate is that the presence of the conductor and a two-person train crew is a pittance compared to the overall budget. And it's $800 billion a year, $800 million a year in subway evasion, in fare evasion, $1 billion a year in wasteful conductor and wasteful consultant spending. When we talk about the cost of the conductor, it's a pittance compared to that. And in terms of service delivery and the services that the conductor provides for New York City Transit riders makes it an absolute no-brainer.
Well, they become the custodian of the New York City asset. Isn't that how I should think about it? They're the person that's on the subway, making sure that the asset is protected, make sure the fares are collected, make sure the people are safe. Is that the way to frame it?
Now, this is an absolutely terrible display by the Fox News host right here, because they asked him economic questions. The guy gave a complete non-answer to that particular issue. And then the Fox News people started saying that these individuals actually end up collecting fares. And then they referenced the subway system, which is absolutely absurd and ridiculous, because anybody who's taken the subway system in the city of New York knows that the fare is collected not on the train. It's actually collected before you could even enter the subway terminal. Now, of course, for Long Island Railroad employees, yes, the people who are checking your tickets are responsible for checking fares and whatnot. But again, the way that they're describing it on Fox News versus what the law is versus the reality of the situation are all completely different from one another. You can make the case, you could make the argument that the Long Island Railroad needs a conductor and a train operator because there's an employee on the Long Island Railroad that actually checks to make sure everybody actually paid for their ticket. You cannot make the argument in terms of fare evasion that the people on the subway are needed for that particular position, because guess what? They do not check the fares on the subway in the city of New York. It's never happened in the history of ever, and any argument to the contrary is absurd and ridiculous. In addition to that, they also put forward this safety reason as a justification for the reason why they need these two employees. And again, this is just not true.
I can't blame them.
Do you want somebody making sure that the train is safe?
Of course I do. But yeah, these conductors they're very hardworking. It's a very difficult job, and safety is a massive concern in the subway
Absolutely.
system.
So I want to make something clear to everybody out there in the audience, because some of you either live in New York City and are not familiar with the subway system somehow, or maybe you're thinking about visiting and you want to get around via public transportation. If you are in danger, if you are being attacked, if somebody's trying to mug you, beat you up, stab you, or something of the sort, the train conductor and the train operator are not two individuals that are going to help you. They are not going to make an arrest or do anything of the sort. And if they do decide to help you in that particular scenario, that is not a part of their job description. So any allusions to the contrary to that fact are absurd and ridiculous. Again, the police will make arrests within the subway, the NYPD or the transit police, not the people who are operating the trains and not the secondary person who is not needed to operate the train. You know, Fox News Studios is in New York City. These people have been on the trains before. They should know this, but, you know, they're trying to go after Governor Kathy Hochul, which of course I 100% support. I can't stand that lady, but the way that they're choosing to do so is to go after her for something that she's absolutely right on. In France's subway system, in in Tokyo's, and all these different mass transit systems around the world, they all manage to be heavily unionized, to have great worker protections, but also they do not have these unnecessary positions in each and every one of these agencies. It is only in New York that we have this, which, by the way, is unsurprising because everything we do in the city of New York and the state of New York related to transit costs an absurd amount of money. 3 of the most expensive transit stations in the entire world, in fact, the 3 most expensive transit stations in the entire world, are all in New York City. You have 2nd Avenue Phase 1, you have the Grand Central Terminal, and you have the Hudson Yard Station. Those are all the recent projects that have opened up. Of course, they're years behind. Some of them are even decades behind. And guess what? The next transit project that is going to supersede these is going to be the 2nd Avenue Phase 2, and Governor Kathy Hochul just announced plans for 2nd Avenue Phase 3, and just so you know, Phase 2 is going to cost $4.3 billion per mile, which is so insane and ridiculous, especially when you consider the fact that France's heavily unionized metro system can build their most expensive stations at $450 million. So they're getting 10x the value per mile at all these stations, and that doesn't even factor into the fact that Rome built a station that goes in and around the Colosseum that they had to dig out by hand around the Colosseum to not damage artifacts, and that station was finished faster than the 2nd Avenue station, and it would cost the same as the total of just Phase 2 for a 16-stop station. Phase 2, by the way, is only 1.7 miles, and it's expected to cost nearly $8 billion. And the reason for this is because we hire 4 times the amount of people, not to mention all the consultants, in order to build anything in the city of New York, and it's absolutely embarrassing. So for the one time, the one instance where Governor Kathy Hochul did something symbolic in that she didn't mandate this inefficiency by law, for this to aggravate the union and then for Fox News to jump on the union side rather than on Kathy Hochul's side is so absurd, asinine, and ridiculous. But again, what do you expect from the piss poor media coverage we typically get? And yes, it's embarrassing that Fox News of all places does not know this. You know, every time I complain about something like this, I'll get comments from people, these absolute dorky transit accounts, people who don't even live in New York City, by the way, but are constantly trying to tell me how my city needs to be run. And those people are saying, oh, you're so car-brained, you don't support anything, you're absolutely terrible. But the fact is, you can't, with a right mind, support any of these government projects when you see how obscene the costs are, because they don't need to be this way, and they're just an excuse for endless graft. There was just an announcement that a bathroom was built in the city of New York, and the cost for this bathroom was $3.4 million. And you look at this bathroom, this ain't some fancy crap or anything of the sort. It's very standard fare. I remember Stossel did a video about how they built one public bathroom in a New York City park and it cost $2 million. Well, guess what? That segment was not effective at all whatsoever because the prices have gone up. And by the way, this is why I don't support Mamdani's increase in public toilets for the homeless, because they can't build them for under $3 million. You could get a damn house, you could get a mansion, you could get a multifamily home for less than $3 million, and yet we're spending that much on a couple of toilets.
So first of all, the conductors are on the subway cars right now.
Yeah.
So we have a contractual right for the conductors. What we did is we put a bill through the Assembly and the Senate of New York State, delivered it to the governor, and expected the governor was going to side with the riders of the New York City subway system who want the conductors in place. They understand the safety element of the conductor as they go to work every day, and we wanted the governor to side with the workers and enshrine this right in New York State law. She refused.
And again, I will remind you that Kathy Hochul's veto of this particular bill did nothing to reduce the inefficient staff on any of the trains throughout the entirety of the state of New York. All it did was not mandate this thing that exists in the union contract with New York State into the law. Thus, it could not be negotiated on in the contract. So maybe at some point in the future, in theory, we have a chance, if we get competent representation, to be able to negotiate that out of the contract in the future. But that is considered too much of a risk for the transit union in the state of New York. So that's why they're mad at her. That's why they want to throw her out on her ass. And yes, while I don't want Hochul to be reelected, the fact is having another Democrat that's going to give them, instead of 99% what they want, 100% of what they want, is not going to be good for the state of New York. It's not going to be good for the taxpayer. And yeah, it's just embarrassing to see this time and time again, this obvious thing that definitely should be reduced for for the benefit of the taxpayer not get done, and not only not get done, but cause a whole aggressive campaign and a potential strike over the fact that they're trying to hold on to these positions. Again, if you want to actually create more jobs, I know I'm not the first person who's made this joke, then you shouldn't have these expensive tunnel making machines to build New York City Transit. You should have shovels, or better yet, even have spoons. It will take so many more people in order to accomplish these tasks. And again, if you're not concerned about wasting money, you shouldn't even utter the word inefficiency. But that's the thing. Everything about New York is artificial inefficiencies in order to maximize the public dollars going to these organizations so that they could become significant voting blocks, so that they could perpetuate these Democrats into power over and over again. And I'm sick of it. It's disgusting. It's reprehensible. $3.4 million for a freaking toilet? Are you kidding me? On top of that, you got billions of dollars for one station, $4.3 billion for 1 mile, just the phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue line, which of course will be outdone by phase 3, which will probably cost $10 billion per mile. And look, I understand it's not just in the state of New York. California notoriously has that high-speed rail project that they sunk $33 billion into it. They haven't built any rail at all whatsoever, basically. And again, it was supposed to be open by 2020, but this is like the price of the completed project. Obviously, if California ever gets that project completed, it will make the top of the list. But the fact is, this is why we can't have nice things in the United States of America. Now, I will also point out that Florida private company built the Bright Line all the way from Orlando to Miami. They did it for like $5 billion, all privately funded. It was done in 4 years. Incredibly efficient. Yes, we can do train travel in the United States of America, but not like this, not for these prices, and not with these people. Again, making sure that all of this is not about providing efficient train travel. It's all about providing jobs, inefficient jobs, to unions to perpetuate Democratic power. So yeah, the one time Governor Kathy Hochul is right about something, it is almost guaranteed that she will reverse on it, and Fox News, of all people, are endorsing the crazy unions and the more left-wing position. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the madness of living in the city of New York. Till next time.